Okay, we're live. Let me sip of my water. Get my radio voice going here. All right. These have been really good. I've been doing one every day for a little while now. You guys know the rules. No nonsense will be tolerated. If you don't know what nonsense means, then just be careful what you post, right? I'm also going to request that if you see someone removed, don't comment on it. Leave it alone. Because I'm going to try to not say anything. I want to just keep everything smooth and flowing and polite in here without having to address any of that. And I think that's a reasonable request. If you're polite to me, I'm going to be polite back to you, right? And, I'll do my best. I think occasionally these happen where I'll occasionally get a question that's a little annoying. But the thing I have to remember, not everyone understands everything about training. Someone said, "Hey, Jason, are you still doing this as a Q&A type of thing?" Well, yeah. I mean, unless I see it have a specific topic in the title, right? If there's a specific topic in the title, I'm going to address that topic. But otherwise, it's mostly just people's questions. I'm going to chat with you guys and gals. So we've got people rolling in here relatively quickly. So let's get some questions going. Of course, you have to be a subscriber to the channel for at least 5 minutes. Do you still believe rows are better for upper back development than pull-ups? I don't think that's really in question. Biomechanically speaking, is it a question of what anyone believes, or is it just basic biomechanics? We can believe whatever we want, but you can't change the functions of muscles. What's the most you've ever dumbbell pressed? I actually have no idea. I know I've repped over 100 pounds before, but I don't have the exact number. Dumbbell press is really just a pump movement anyways, though. Granted, progressive overload matters, but it really should be chasing, that deep range of motion and a stretch on it for a lot of reps. Have you ever had to get a woman over her fear of developing callus on her hands? How to do it? Women seem to be terrified of getting calluses. I don't know how to deal with that one. Yes, they are. I don't have a good answer for you. Chelsea said, "Jason, I'm new to the channel. I'm an overweight 46-year-old woman. Where should I start?" Basic strength training, right? Basic strength training, and start just tracking your food. It could be something as simple as to start, get in the gym a couple days a week, get on a basic program, and maybe just cut liquid calories out, right? The things that you drink that have calories, that might be all you need to get started. And we just slowly work that up. Any tips to how to pick up a big booty girl at the gym? Charles, I'm going to tell you the same thing I tell everyone. You don't have enough game to pick up girls at the gym. Girls at the gym are so used to clowns hitting on them nonstop over and over and over and over that they usually find it annoying. So unless you are just a total pimp who can walk in and just pick up women everywhere at the drop of a hat, like just easily everywhere you go, like every time you leave your house, women just give you their number, not 5-6 times, you're not going to pick up girls at the gym. Give up, leave them alone, let them train. You have to be on top of your game to do that. Mainly because they have so much dick thrown at them in the gym that they're usually just batting you away and trying to put their sunglasses on and put their bills down if they look good, right? Because it's just like they're repelling guys nonstop. Don't add to it. Leave them alone. Let them train. That would be my advice. I don't know if you knew this, but it's biologically impossible for glutes to not fire on squats and deadlifts. Okay, why thank you for telling me that. I will go back and put up a video on that an hour ago, now that I'm aware of it. Thank you so much. Hey, Jason, my bench press is stalled at 225. I have long arms and I progress monthly on close grip for reps, but my bench is still stalled. Are you gaining weight? Are you sleeping enough? Right? It's a lot of factors. right? A lot of things going on. Have you given it enough time? Have you given it enough time? Gaining new tissue takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. You're maybe reaching the point where things are going to stall, or where you're going to fight for every 5 pounds for a while. You're going to eventually get to a point where 5 pounds in a year is going to be serious work. Does GH grow the male organ? There's hypotheses about that. I don't think it necessarily does. I wouldn't put much stock into that. Alpha Destiny keeps promoting a road press for used delts, but only does 2 sets of it a week. Do you think the delts are just because of the laterals instead of he just doesn't? I have no idea. I don't know what he does with his training. I don't know what he looks like these days, really. So I don't have an answer for you, Brendan. Good guy. I'm not going to be able to help you with that. You kind of ask the same questions over and over, by the way. I don't know if you're aware of that. I've been bulking for a long time, made great gains, but I'm starting to get a little too fluffy and feel like it's time to cut. I'm too worried of losing strength, though. Any advice? That's the nature of cutting, man. There's oftentimes going to be a little bit of strength loss. When you're not a novice lifter, you're not new to the gym anymore, and you decide to lose weight, it's oftentimes going to come at a price in strength and lean body tissue. You accept that. You can work on trying to minimize it by keeping your deficit as small as possible, not overtraining, keeping protein and carbs as high as you can, right? But you may just have to accept the fact that a little bit of it's going to happen and not get emotionally tied up with it or invested in it. It's just part of the process. You have to learn to accept those things. Are cardio adaptations, heart, mitochondria, less permanent than strength training adaptations? I feel cardio performance comes and goes very fast with training. Oh, absolutely. Way, way faster. Because you're not dealing with the same sort of long-term structural changes. So a lot of your endurance and cardiovascular adaptations are very short-lived. Like they detrain extremely fast. But we gain them much faster. Humans gain endurance dramatically faster than we gain strength, and we lose it dramatically faster accordingly. Jason, is cheese bad for you as a dairy source? That is a topic of great nuance, right? I mean, it would still depend on the context of your total diet, your genetics, everything else. It could potentially be bad, right? Potentially be bad, but it's not by default. What should be the downside of a non-competitor using straps on deadlift maxes and rep work? I always thought mixed in hook grip or so a trick to hold the bar and didn't actually train the grip. No, they train the grip to some extent. There's a lot of issues running with it. Mainly, you may just end up with less forearm development. And quite frankly, I feel like in a lot of ways, guys who use too many straps, in general, they shortchange their grip and their forearm development. Like you guys see me training almost exclusively without straps. And other than on the really heaviest deadlifts, and I have an elite deadlift, right? My grip is never an issue. It's never an issue because I built it up in proportion. And I think once you do start using straps too much, you are running the risk of having smaller, weaker forearms, weaker grip, because then you really need to train those things later. And if you're going to be strong and proportioned, you can't have a weak grip and tiny forearms. And I fully understand the argument in the other direction of not allowing it to limit back development. But let me point out to you guys, everyone freaks out at the size of my back, right? Has not using straps limited my back development? I don't think that it has. So just something to think about. Jason, how come I'm stronger on the SSB than a regular squat bar? Probably psychological, or you really are super, super loose on it. Mark, I'm not going to be able to help you there, man. Sorry. I don't know if that's the real Mark Stubing, actually. I probably need to see if I can check that. Because if it's not, I'm going to get rid of you. Okay. Yeah, that's definitely a troll. So let's just get rid of you. And it's not cool to make fun of stooping, guys. It really isn't. I've said in previous lives why it's unacceptable to do so. Like you're bad people if you do it. You really are. Mr. Blaha, I've started the gym recently as a beginner. Would a 4-day upper lower split be good for me? Possibly. A lot of times I like full body 3 times a week for novices, but 4-day upper lower is still very much acceptable. Do you think people who follow the Keno Body program, which includes standing press without squats or deadlifts, will end up having issues in the lower back? I think they're going to be small and weak in general. I have never seen anyone who ran Keno Body's programs who make good gains from them. I've had multiple clients who ran his stuff before they hired me. I mean, again, it's mostly nonsense. It's all upper body focus, a lot of junk. You know, I'm not saying it's the worst thing out there, but you're going to end up being weak, and you're not going to look like he does. You're not going to get his results. We don't even know that that's really what he follows. Since he doesn't vlog all his training year round like I do, you have no proof of what he actually does in the gym. That's the other problem, even with the anecdote of various influencers. They might sell and market you something based on a gimmick, because a lot of his programming is very much based on a gimmick that they may not even actually do themselves. Guess what? That's been happening for decades in the lifting world. That goes all the way back to before the internet even existed. All those bodybuilding magazines, you have a lot of those bodybuilders who came out later and said, oh, the magazine wrote the program that I signed off in the interview and said I do. They just wrote it and put it in there and they paid me. And I never actually did that workout. Who do you consider really good strength coaches besides yourself? I don't even know where to start with that. Like, I don't want to stand here in my live stream and, provide free advertisement for my competitors, like people who are as good as I am. Like, why would I want to do that? There's a lot of people I respect and like, and I'm friends with a lot of coaches. You can look at, my various social media and figure out who I'm friends with and who I like as far as coaches go. Do you advocate progressing GPP difficulty, or just make sure you're doing something? Make sure you're doing something. I mean, you can progress on GPP, but at the end of the day, it is just GPP. And you do have to decide how important conditioning is to you versus your size and strength. Because if you put all your efforts into progressing on GPP, it may come at the cost of the other stuff. Don't you think hip thrusts are overrated? I got better glutes from lunges and step ups. No, I think hip thrusts are good. I don't think, I'm going to rephrase this. Have they been overrated in certain circles? Yes, they've been made to be something more than they are. Like when it's, hey, they're the best glute exercise ever. Well, that's objectively false. Are they overrated if someone says, hey, they're a pretty good exercise? No, they are a good exercise. They're a very good exercise. They're just not the be-all, end-all. What would you recommend other than a glute ham raise for glute hamstring weak link? Glutes are a completely separate topic, because the glute ham raise is not necessarily that great of a glute exercise. The ham part is really the part of the glute ham raise that needs to be in the name. It's called a GHR because of tradition, not necessarily a great glute exercise. Hamstrings, I don't know if there's anything that really can surpass it. But, failing that, I think good mornings, Romanian deadlifts, things like that can give you a lot of bang for your buck. Would doing farmers walks only and nothing else be a good form of GPP as long as the distance of time is right? I don't have anything else available. Yeah, that's fine. Jason, would you consider making a second channel focusing on all around male improvement, i.e. dating, fashion, spirituality? Nope. If I do any sort of stuff like that, I'm going to keep it on the main channel that's fully monetized with a check mark on it. I'm not interested in doing second channels and splitting my stuff up. Because if I did put stuff like that, which I'm not saying I plan on it, I might put more guitar stuff up here. The audience doesn't have to watch it, But the fact that you put it on your bigger channel gives it more chance of getting outreach. So starting second channels as someone who's done all of this is not the best approach for most things, unless it is such a divergent topic that your main audience would hate it, such as when I used to do the firearm channel, right? Which I don't do anymore, and I don't plan on doing anymore. So no, I mean, if I were to do those things, I'd probably put them onto this channel. Again, not saying I would, because I'm not going to give you guys dating advice. I'm going to give you guys, really, you want to use me for fashion advice? It's going to be cargo shorts and chucks, or it's going to be my cowboy stuff. If you guys want to go find, boot cut jeans and cowboy hats and snakeskin boots, I guess, I'm right up there. I got some pretty cool belt buckles. Is doing upper lower 3 days a week, the rest between, is there upper body accessory lifts? Could you shift lower body? I don't even know what you're asking me. Jesus Christ. Just, Patrick, reword that. Start over, please. I can't figure out what you're asking. Not in this format. Can GPP be combined with list cardio on the same day, or are you better off doing just one? No, you can combine them. Just be aware when you start combining list, GPP, and lifting all in the same programming, you better know what you're doing. So here's the point we come to, Marco. If you're needing to ask questions like that in a Q&A, you need to be very, very careful of trying to combine them at all. Because you're not at the level to be able to really program that ideally if you need to ask people for advice. And that's not intended as an insult. You're going to potentially compromise your recovery. You're going to need to tread very lightly there, or you need to read a lot of books on hybrid programming. Is greater than 0.5 gram for a first cycle excessive? I don't know. I guess it really depends on what you're using. Overall, is reverse hypers, glute ham raise, a good morning, good for building a well-rounded posterior chain? I think so. Do you think ring push-ups are an alternative for those who anatomically can't perform dips? I think ring push-ups, unless you have a reason to do them, I think you're risking pec tears and injuries for no benefit. Just my personal opinion, says me. People can disagree. It has no magical training response. There's no magic training response over using them over free weights or a normal push-up or anything else in terms of a hypertrophy tool. But it carries extra risk. Now if you're going to go do gymnastic stuff, I get it. That makes sense. But you're training for sport specificity. You're not using it as, hey, am I trying to build my chest and triceps up? What is the single best lift a client of yours has done, comp or gym? While as clients, or even after they've rotated out? Because, dude, one of my clients who rotated out because he ran into budget issues just hit a 700-pound squat on the platform. He hit 635 as one of my lifters. I got him up to 635. I've had clients do over 700 deadlifts. Is there any good reason to use Trent if you're going to be a bodybuilder? I would go so far as to say it's very hard to compete in bodybuilding without Trent. I'm not saying impossible, just it can be more difficult. Hi, Jason. I do 10 sets of back work, pull-ups, rows. I would like to add in 3 to 5 sets of chin-ups. Should these count as half sets towards back? No, they're full sets. Why would they be half sets? They work the lats as a primary mover. Yeah, 7. Now keep in mind though, he only did 635 while I was working with him. If I injured my disc, and that's, by the way, that's raw. That's no wraps, no sleeves. That is in a belt. If I injured my disc in my low back doing high rep deadlifts, will deadlifting again help rehab them? That's a source of great debate. That's not necessarily going to be the best way to rehab them. I'm not saying you can't do deadlifts again, but you need to do other rehab stuff. Would shifting lateral raises or bicep curls to lower days compromise bicep and delt recovery for the next workout day? It could potentially. You need to watch your total volume very carefully. You can do it for a short period of time, like I've done with some of it. I've done that stuff for short periods of time, but I do also notice you very, very quickly can start noticing a little bit of tendon inflammation. So it might not be ideal because you're back over to doing stuff like training a bicep 4 days a week. Not ideal in the long term. Did you listen to podcasts or so? I do, but I don't necessarily have a list. Would you consider starting a band and performing live when I get better? I need to keep practicing. Yes, I have friends who would like to do that right now. Real life friends. I need more practice. Sebum recently said his top 10. What would be your 10 exercises if you could only do deadlifts and then 9 trigger pulls on the person, limiting me to 10 exercises so that I can do as many as I want? How's that for an answer? Jason, can humans use gene splicing to get as jacked as gorillas or big cats? I have no idea. Probably not the wisest idea at this current level of technology. What are your thoughts on rucking for conditioning? Works great. Do you think walking 10K steps a day is just as good for cardiovascular health as running, sprinting? It's a different type of cardiovascular training. It's a completely different type of training. So no, it's not the same entirely. It's better in some ways and worse in others. Would someone who is not interested in taking hormones still be able to reach elite levels of strength? How it depends on time, genetics, how long they're willing to invest. There's a lot of factors there, Matthew. If you're asking, is it possible? Yes, it's possible. It has been done. It may not be as easy as you think it is. And keep in mind time frames, and then keep in mind genetics being a big factor. Quite frankly, I think the way the world is going with stuff, I predict within the next 10 years, no one's going to care about the natty thing or not. Right? Can women tell if a guy is on steroids? No, good guy. Everyone who's not in the lifting world has no trouble identifying a steroid user at all. It's only the dumbasses who've bought into the fake natty thing and the propaganda of the industry that struggle to do it. Like it's created blinders for people. I promise you, the average person down the street knows what steroids look like. But who don't lift, who aren't involved, they all know that guy's on steroids. They know. And how messed up is that the more you're around lifting and the more you're exposed to social media, the more you lose the ability to tell. You've been conditioned to not be able to tell because you have guys who use a gram a trend who scream how natural they are nonstop, and they have people defending them about how they're natural and they just work hard. So then in your mind, the guy who is clearly using a gram a trend, which is, insane, he's using insane doses. In your mind, it starts creating the possibility that maybe that guy might be natural. You see where I'm going? When in reality, no one who hasn't been conditioned to believe that through hopes and dreams and false advertising would buy that bullshit. They look at him and go, oh, dude, that guy's on enough elephant testosterone to kill 20 gorillas. Everyone else already knows. Would you say steroids at lower dose equivalent of birth control for women in terms of negative effects? In some cases, safer. But again, it depends on the specifics. You took a whole classification of substances. You didn't name a substance. You just gave me a list of 50 different drugs, a whole category. It said, discuss the health risk. Well, it doesn't work like that. Eric Cressy advocates for push-ups and landmine presses to allow shoulder blades to go upward and rotate and protract instead of all the pressing being done on the bench. Thoughts on that for shoulder health? I don't know. Jason, someone asked, I will not be discussing at all what meets I'm going to do in public. Any meets I'm going to do are going to be kept quiet. Jason, do you keep rep and set schemes the same regardless of what wave you're in on speed work? These days, yeah. Can Cialis aid recovery? I don't know about that. People use it for pumps. Tried squatting for the first time manually. It's really confusing. My quads didn't get fatigued. My lower back took a lot of load instead. I have a Smith machine in my gym and it burns like hell. Video yourself so people can see what cycle or RFK. I don't know what that means. Jason, why do so many women have tattoos nowadays? I don't know, because they want them. Blind lifter with asymmetric bar path. How do I fix? You're going to need to have someone help you feel it out. Probably a coach in person. It's funny that no one believes that Michael Hearn is natty, but then some people believe someone who's just slightly smaller than Mike is obviously still on plenty of stuff, right? Coach thoughts on dedicated arm day. I think that's silly. What are some effective accessory lifts for chest development? Dumbbell presses, incline presses, decline presses, in some cases machines. Yeah. How long would it take to build back after 3 weeks vacation with no access to weights? I have no idea. What are your strength standards to differentiate a novice to an intermediate main lift such as bench row? I don't know that I use numbers for that. I use how quickly they can progress. Jason, will you ever write a book on how to excel in coaching and how you overcame all the hate in the past 10 years? I don't know, maybe. Do you think deadlift set by Thor will ever be bested? Yes. Jason, is paintball good cardio? I guess it depends on if you're doing cardio while you're doing it or not. Are powerlifters usually much stronger than bodybuilders pound for pound? Not necessarily. Hey, Jason, would you ever date a client? I don't know about that. You got to be very, very, very careful with those things, Darko. I mean, it's hypothetically possible, but that's something I would tread very, very lightly on. And that's something I would recommend for any of you out there who are coaches or trainers. You need to be very careful with that because, again, it's your professionalism, it's your professional reputation at stake. You need to be careful there. Plus, you have to not cross boundaries. Josh, I've already covered that of what happened with the gaining the weight. Right, I've covered that. I've gained the weight twice. I don't feel like rehashing all that again. Jason, what is the weirdest thing you've seen someone do in the gym? I wouldn't even know where to start. I've seen so much weird stuff. Do you think you've maximized your bodybuilding? What? First off, I'm not a bodybuilder. I'm still growing. Number two, I don't do compound or isolation movements. I do multi-joint and single joint because I actually read science and I don't follow bodybuilding words. You guys know that, by the way. You guys know that I hate those terms. Those are like big pet peeves of mine, compound and isolation. Anyone who watches my channel knows that's like one of my little trigger words. Like I automatically, and I'm going to be polite, but I usually think someone is stupid as soon as they use them. That they're not read at all on training. It's usually the first thing. And I know that's not true. It's my knee-jerk reaction. I tend to dismiss anyone who uses those words just automatically. But I do lots of single joint exercises. And if you go look at the studies do show that single joint versus multi-joint, the newest meta-analysis, there's not really a difference. It's not really a difference in terms of hypertrophy. That's what the meta-analysis shows. A lot of people ask questions about lifting, but no one asks how you're doing. Hope you're doing well. Thanks. You know what, Matthew? I appreciate that. Josh, it's linked underneath everything. All of my videos here have a link to my big Facebook page, and that's where you can message me for coaching information. right? DM me there. It's underneath every single video in the description. What exactly is the difference between a single joint and a multi-joint? Sorry for those terms. That's okay. A single joint uses one joint. Multi-joint uses multiple joints. Example, tricep extension, just the elbow. That's a single joint, right? Your elbow bends. Multi-joint would be bench press. Your shoulder joint and your elbow joint move. Is Emma having recovery issues? Seems like she regressed. Well, Michelle's making a lot more. No, Emma's got a lot of stuff going on. A lot of stuff going on. So we always work through it. But we've had that for years with her. Keep in mind, Emma is not a competitive athlete anymore. She just wants to be strong. She wants to be fit. I mean, I put her up deadlifting over 300 pounds again recently. She's benching like 150. She's lean. She's fit. She's athletic. That's her goals. Keep in mind, Emma is not a power lifter. And I think people assume because they're like, oh man, she just did a 325 deadlift. She's going to power lift. But that's not her goals. Okay. Her goals are to be strong and fit. It's not to be on the platform. And so we accept that there's going to be times when she's got a lot of stress going and training is adjusted and she regresses and then we regain. I've had her for 4 years at this point. Like her and Louie have been Team Blaha for 4 years. It's going to be a very long-term thing. In fact, I had a quick video call with her today, just discussing some stuff going on with that. I mean, they're pretty much lifers. Do you find chin-ups and pull-ups to be over-fatiguing for most people when rows can do the same? In many cases, yeah. You think seal rows and inverted rows would be worked back in for you? Do you have strong preferences for standing rows and one-arm rows? Patrick, I like all of those. Right now, that's what I'm using. Right now, that's what I'm using. But I've also used those others a lot in the past, and I think they're all good. I think they all have their place. It just depends on what you're doing with your training, right? So don't assume that just because I like a certain accessory right now that I won't go back to the others. They're all good movements. Jason, would you rather have? Yeah, I don't answer nonsense like that. MSNBC says being obsessed with physical fitness is a side thing. I just saw that about 10 minutes before I started this stream. That's ludicrous. I'm technically not far right, by the way. For those who are unaware, I don't discuss politics, but I'm pretty moderate these days. Jason, is eating 5 eggs a day advisable for increasing protein intake? It's going to depend on your genetics, context of your entire diet, all those things. You mentioned due to stress, you had to deload a few weeks ago. Yeah, I'm doing good. Josh, you send a private message. You go to that page. There's a sticky at the top with the full details and instructions. You follow those instructions and you send a DM to that page. Okay. It's pretty straightforward. But if you're doing multi-joint movements, when the range of motion be reduced for each joint, no, it's not necessarily. Sometimes it's full range of motion. You were right the whole time about BCAs. Yep, I was. Absolutely right about BCAAs. I mean, Charles, I think some of them were, but a lot of it was more for show for the camera. But I think people took a lot of stuff out of context. A lot of things have been remixed. But I definitely wouldn't consider myself far right these days at all. I have viewpoints that are both left and right wing. I mean, obviously, firearms are one I'm very much on the right. And I do hold a relatively extreme stance regarding that, like about as far as you could possibly have. Like, I don't believe in any gun control of any type at all. But that's my own personal views. Like, I don't believe in carry licenses. I don't believe in background checks because I don't think the government has a right to have any say over your weaponry. Outside of that, though, I don't know that I'm really that far right. And definitely hold some views that the right would not like. But that's, again, I don't discuss politics on my. right? I don't discuss politics online anymore. It's just not worth it to me. And it's not worth the fighting and arguments. Politics have gotten so ugly on the internet that all everyone does is cancel each other and just spew anger and hatred, and it's just not worth it. I would rather stay out of all of it. Let's see what else we have. Is the sun anabolic? What? Oh my God. Okay. What point do you consider someone to no longer be weak? No, Charles, I never said the FBI labeled me as a far right-wing extremist. What? Yeah, I'm just going to, never mind you. That's ridiculous. You just need to go. See, I don't normally say I'm going to get rid of someone. All right. So at what point do I consider someone to no longer be weak? Probably for men, probably that regular 2-plate, 3-plate, 4-plate, like 2-plate bench, 3-plate squat, 4-plate deadlift, and that's per side. I think at that point you're no longer weak. Just objectively speaking, obviously, powerlifting perspective, people would say that's weak. Maybe to a lot of gym rats, like they think that's an insane standard, insanely high. So I guess that's kind of varied, but I think that's a good benchmark. All right. We have any other questions here? Is the sun anabolic? No, I don't think the sun is anabolic. Please keep up the live streams and interviews. Yeah, I should have more interviews coming. Hey, Coach, does water have a memory? I was talking to a man outside a coffee shop, and he told me what I've never heard of. I've heard of those sort of theories, actually. It's an interesting concept, and there's some possible quantum mechanics behind that. I have heard that before. I don't know how true it is, right? I don't know how true it is. Maybe. Who knows? Not sure how that fits into the context of strength training, though. Maybe. Thoughts on berberine and fasted cardio mornings for boosting fat? I'm going to say fasted cardio, the research has not shown it to be helpful. Berberine is going to be a very complex topic as far as any of those glucose disposal type agents. I really don't know. I think the jury's still out on that one. Is intermittent fasting on the bulk okay? I'm going to say probably not. Jason McShannon has the most videos I've ever seen, and I've been doing it over a decade. Thoughts on doing basic gymnastic rings, exercise like push-ups and bird rows? I'm not a fan. No, I think the risk is higher for no real benefit. I'm just not a fan of gymnastics rings. Just because I don't see there being an actual true training benefit and just a little tiny bit of added risk. I mean, if you enjoy it, by all means, but they're not better in any way, and that's the thing. They're not necessarily better. Iodine from 10 grams iodized sea salt is too much. That's a lot. You also need to be looking at, why are you taking 10 grams of added salt a day? Much love from Iowa. Appreciate it. Thoughts on sandbag GPP? Yeah, I know plenty of people who use sandbags for GPP. It seems to be an effective modality. Do you think taking HGH for lifting as a 23-year-old male under the supervision of a physician is bad or useless idea? Someone who just wants to be strong? I don't think it's a useless idea at all. Do good mornings have less carryover to deadlifts than RDLs? Is it less? Subject to great debate. They both have carryover. We could make the case that the RDL may have better carryover, but again, that's only if we're looking at movement pattern, not necessarily just hypertrophy and then practicing deadlifts. Do you think 500 pounds deadlift drug-free should be considered strong? Yeah, I think pretty decent. I mean, a true deadlift, like not some guy hitching with straps. But yeah, I mean, a raw deadlift for a drug-free guy at 500, I think is pretty good. I don't think you should knock that ever. How much GH before you get size? That varies from person to person. Do good mornings have carryover to high bar squats? Yes. An uncle of a friend was telling me how there's a big difference between gym strength and real world strength. He said that bodybuilding, working with him, couldn't lift a bag of sand. It's just a coat. Yeah, it's a coat. Thoughts on taking normally a single joint exercise such as curls, hamstring machines, etc., dumbbell side raises to failure? I don't think you should be doing them all to failure. You can get close, but keep in mind, failure itself, the actual failed rep, doesn't give you a good training stimulus, and it does cut into recovery. If you're keeping your volumes really low, it's probably not a big deal. I don't think it's going to impact you negatively. What do you think the average man can bench press if completely untrained? Maybe 60 pounds? Thoughts on finding a good male role model for someone with a deceased father? I think they should. I don't have good advice for you on how to do that, but it would behoove them to do so. Do special forces soldiers employ conjugate training? Some of them do. I feel like they are the cream of the crop athletes of the world. Well, Parth, that's not subject to debate. There are absolutely documented cases of Rangers being trained under conjugate. So just an FYI, like it's absolutely done and known publicly. What free weight exercises would you add to ream gymnastics training to make it complete? Normal training, like you need to just do normal strength training with your barbell movements. Thoughts on heavy dumbbell farmer's walks for stronger deadlift and growing muscles? I don't personally get carryover from farmer's walks to my deadlift personally. I think it's good for conditioning though. If you had the space and unlimited budget, how would your home gym look with their machines? Man, I would probably have a full dumbbell rack. I would have bigger racks, a little stuff spread out a little more. I'd probably have a seal row bench, things like that. Does heavy squats always cause skin to scrape off my back when the barbell is rubbing on it? Yeah, it'll help. You'll build a callus there. Can pause squats replace squats on back offsets? Yes. You don't necessarily have to do back offsets either. There's other stuff you can do. All right, so we're at 42 minutes. It's been a long live. I'm going to go ahead and wind this down. So I hope it's been informative. I love all of you guys and gals, and I will talk to you next time.